He almost didn't show up to that blind date. 1 week later, he was driving 500 miles across 3 state lines with his 7-year-old son in the passenger seat, chasing a woman he barely knew. Because some part of him already knew he couldn't lose her. Stay with me until the end of this story. Because what happens in that garage after he finds her will stay with you long after the video ends. If you're enjoying the story so far, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's get into it. The bell above the garage door hadn't worked right in 6 years, and Logan Hayes kept meaning to fix it. It made a sound now that was somewhere between a cough and a dying bird. And every time a customer walked in, they'd flinch and look up at it like it had insulted them personally. Logan would just wipe his hands on the rag hanging from his back pocket and say, "Yeah, I know. It's on the list." The list was a running joke at Hayes Auto. There was no list. There had never been a list. There was only Logan, a 1998 payphone he'd turned into a tip jar, a radio that played classic rock or nothing at all, and a 7-year-old boy named Caleb who ran around the lot like he owned the place, because in a certain way, he did. It was a Tuesday in late September, the kind of afternoon that couldn't decide if it wanted to be summer or autumn. The light came through the open bay doors sideways in gold, catching on the metal shavings and the dust and the small constellation of greasy handprints that Caleb had left on the side of a Ford Bronco earlier that morning. Logan was under a Chevy Silverado that had been giving its owner, a rancher named Tom Delaney, more trouble than it was worth. The transmission was coughing. Logan could hear it, could feel it. He'd been a mechanic long enough that a car's problem sounded to him the way a person's cough sounded to a doctor. Bronchial, dry. Something wrong in the bottom. "Dad." "Dad." "I hear you, bud. Mr. Ramos is here." Logan rolled himself out from under the truck on the creeper and squinted up at the afternoon. Miguel Ramos was standing in the open bay, a paper bag from the diner down the street dangling from one finger, a sweating bottle of Coke in the other hand. He had on his usual boots, a blue work shirt with Ramos Electric stitched on the chest, and an expression Logan had come to know too well. It was the expression of a man about to ruin your afternoon in the name of your own good. "Don't," Logan said before Miguel had even opened his mouth. "I brought lunch." Bribery. Persuasion. Same thing when you're doing it. Logan stood, stretched, and winced as something in his lower back popped. He took the bag, peered inside. Turkey sandwich, pickle. "You want something?" "I want you to take a shower." "I take showers." "I want you to take a shower tonight, specifically, and then I want you to put on a shirt that does not have the name of an auto parts store on it, and I want you to come to Lakeside with me and Elena at 7. Logan was already shaking his head. He walked over to the little fridge humming in the corner of the office, dropped the sandwich inside, took out a water. He did all of this very slowly, because the slower he moved, the more his silence functioned as a kind of argument. "Logan, no. You haven't said yes yet. How can you be saying no?" "I know the shape of it, Miguel. I know the shape." Caleb was on the floor by the workbench, moving a red toy car over the concrete, narrating a chase scene between the car and something invisible. He looked up at the word no, because no was a word he liked to track. Caleb was 7, all knees and elbows and hair. His father could never get to lie flat. He wore a t-shirt 3 washes past its best, and a pair of jeans with a small tear in the left knee that he'd earned legitimately, falling off a curb 2 weeks back. "No to what?" Caleb asked. "Nothing, bud." "It's not nothing," Miguel said. "Your dad is being a hermit." "What's a hermit?" "A person who lives in a shell?" Caleb considered this, frowning. "Dad doesn't live in a shell. He lives in our apartment." "Exactly," Logan said. "Case closed." "Thanks, Caleb." "You're the worst lawyer," Miguel told the kid, who beamed at the attention and went back to his car. Miguel stepped closer. He lowered his voice, though Caleb wasn't listening anymore. "Elena has a friend. From the hospital. Pediatric nurse. I know she's great. They're always great." "That's what you say." "She's great. You'll like her. Just show up." "Miguel, it has been 3 years. I know how to measure time." "That's exactly my point. 3 years, man." Caleb is 7. He's not the reason, and you know he's not the reason. You hide behind him, and I love you. I do. But that boy needs more than a ghost for a father. Something passed across Logan's face then. Miguel saw it and immediately regretted the word ghost. He opened his mouth to walk it back, but Logan was already turning away, back toward the Silverado, back toward the thing he could fix. That was shitty, Miguel said. I'm sorry. It's fine. It's not fine, but I'm still asking. 7 o'clock, Lakeside Cafe. You don't have to marry her, you just have to show up. Logan stopped. He ran a hand through his hair, which was dark and too long at the back, and he stared for a moment at a patch of oil on the floor that had been there since August. His jaw worked. If I say yes, he said, will you leave? Immediately. 1 hour. 2. 1 hour, and if she's boring, I walk out. She's not boring. That's what you said about the bank teller. The bank teller was not boring. The bank teller had opinions about cryptocurrency, which is different. Logan almost smiled. Almost. He caught it before it got away from him, swallowed it down. Fine, he said. 1 hour. 7 o'clock. Don't wear the parts store shirt. I don't even own a... You own 4 of them, and we both know it. Miguel clapped him on the shoulder and walked out into the sunlight, and Logan stood there in the sudden quiet of the garage, listening to Caleb making vroom sounds on the floor, and he thought, not for the first time and not for the last, Claire, I am so tired. I am so tired of doing this without you. Claire had been gone 3 years, 2 months, and 11 days. Logan didn't count anymore, not the way he used to, but the numbers lived somewhere in him regardless, the way a song you hate lives in you after you've heard it on the radio too many times. She'd had a heart thing, a defect nobody knew about, not her, not the doctors, not her own mother. She'd been making pancakes on a Sunday morning, and then she'd been on the kitchen floor, and then she'd been gone before the ambulance could get across town. Caleb had been 4. He remembered her the way a child remembers a dream, in flashes, in feelings, the smell of her shampoo, her laugh, the way she sang along to the radio wrong on purpose, making up lyrics, which he had thought, at 4, was how every adult sang. Logan had kept the shop running because the shop did not care that his wife was dead. The shop needed oil changes and brake pads and diagnostic runs. Transmission fluid was needed whether or not you could sleep at night. He'd found comfort in that, in the machines, in problems that could actually be solved, and he had kept his son alive. That was the other thing. He had packed lunches. He had braided a Halloween costume out of cardboard and duct tape. He had learned to do laundry without turning everything pink. He had become, in a way his own father had never been, a man who showed up. Dating was not on the list. Dating was not even near the list. But Miguel was not wrong about the rest. Burchette. He almost didn't go. At 6:40, Logan was still in the bathroom of his apartment, staring at himself in the mirror, noticing for the first time in a while that there was gray coming in at his temples. Not a lot. Enough. He was 32. He didn't think that was supposed to happen yet. He'd put on a gray button-down shirt that Claire had bought him back when they were still pretending they had the money to buy each other things like nice shirts. It still fit. That surprised him. He'd expected it not to, the way he expected most things from that part of his life not to fit anymore. Dad? Caleb was leaning against the bathroom door frame holding a juice box. The babysitter, Mrs. Alvarez from 2 doors down, was in the living room watching something with too many commercials. Yeah, bud. You look weird. Thanks. Good weird. You look like you're going somewhere. Logan crouched down. I am going somewhere, just for a little bit. Mrs. Alvarez is going to stay with you, and I'll be home before you go to bed, okay? Where are you going? He hesitated. He had promised himself early on that he would not lie to his son, not about the small things and not about the big ones. Kids saw through lies like glass. Claire had told him that once, and he'd held it, along with everything else she'd said, like it was a rule. I'm meeting a friend, he said. A new friend. Uncle Miguel set it up. Caleb chewed on his straw. Considered this. Is it a girlfriend? It's a woman. Okay. Okay. Caleb shrugged. Bring home leftovers. Logan laughed then, for real, the kind of laugh he didn't see coming. He pulled his son in and kissed the top of his head, and Caleb made a face and wiped his forehead like the kiss had been an attack. Logan stood, grabbed his keys, and walked out before he could talk himself out of it. Lakeside Cafe sat on a small man-made pond that someone, at some point, had decided to call a lake. There were fairy lights strung along the patio and a fire pit that wasn't lit yet because it wasn't cold enough. The place smelled like garlic bread and lake water. Logan got there at 7:05. He had planned to be 10 minutes late because being on time felt like commitment, and being early felt like hunger, and he wanted to communicate neither of those things. He stood in the gravel parking lot for a moment, hands in his pockets, and almost got back in his truck. Then he walked in. The hostess, a girl with a nose ring and a clipboard, looked up at him and smiled. "Hayes? That's me. She's on the patio. She's on the patio. Already there." Logan's stomach did a small, ridiculous thing. He walked through the dining room, past couples and families and a table of older women laughing over wine, and out onto the patio. The sun was low now, gold turning to red over the water. He scanned the tables, and he saw her. She was at a corner table by the railing. She hadn't noticed him yet. She was reading, actually reading, a real book, not a phone, and a piece of her hair had fallen forward and she was pushing it behind her ear absently, the way a person does when they're not performing for anyone. She had on a dark green sweater, the sleeves pushed up to her elbows, and a pair of jeans, and her forearms were freckled from a summer she'd clearly spent outside. She was laughing at something on the page, just to herself. No one else was there to hear it. Logan stopped walking. He did not think of himself as a man who noticed things, particularly, he noticed engines. He noticed when Caleb was about to get sick before Caleb knew he was going to get sick. He did not typically notice women in the way books and movies had told him he was supposed to, but he noticed her. She looked up as if she'd felt him looking, and her eyebrows went up in a question, and he realized he'd been standing there staring like an idiot. "Logan?" she said. "Yeah." He crossed the patio. "Yeah, sorry. Hi, Arya?" "Arya." She stood and she was tall, nearly his height, and she held out her hand like they were at a business meeting, and then, mid-gesture, she seemed to hear how awkward it was, and she laughed and switched to a half wave, and then said, "Actually, you know what, Hug?" Or, "God, no, let's just sit down. Let's just sit down." He sat down. "That was the worst greeting of all time," she said. "I want you to know I'm aware. It was pretty bad. Thank you for your honesty." She slid the book under the table, face down. "I brought a book in case you didn't show up. I had a whole plan. I was going to order a glass of wine, read for 45 minutes, and then go home and tell Elena I'd had a lovely time." Logan felt a corner of his mouth pull up. "I almost didn't show up." "See? There's our icebreaker. We were both hoping the other one wouldn't come. This is going great." He laughed. It came out easier than he'd expected. The waitress came over. A kid, maybe 19. And Arya ordered a glass of red wine, and Logan ordered a beer he didn't actually want, because it was the first one on the menu and because his brain had just decided, apparently, to stop cooperating. When the waitress left, Arya looked at him across the table and tilted her head. "So, Logan Hayes, you fix cars." "I do." "Elena said you're a single dad." "Elena said a lot, apparently." Elena is a nurse. Nurses have no concept of boundaries. It's a professional hazard. "How much did she say?" "Enough." He nodded slowly. "And you still came." Arya's expression softened then, just slightly, the corners of her mouth going serious before they found the smile again. "I still came." He looked at her. Really looked. Up close she was... He couldn't find the word for it. Not beautiful exactly, although she was... alive. That was the word. She was alive in a way that made him realize how long he'd been half asleep. "What about you?" he said. "Elena, tell me what I'm supposed to know about you." "She told you my name, my job, and probably that I laugh too loud. All three are true." "What do you do?" "I'm a social worker, family services. I work with kids in the foster system." He nodded. "That's heavy work." "Some days. Some days it's paperwork. Today was paperwork." She picked up her water glass, set it back down. "What about you? Heavy work?" "I'd imagine transmissions are heavy." "Physically, yeah. Mentally, it's the best part of my day." "Why?" "Because a transmission tells you what's wrong with it. It's not subtle. It doesn't pretend to be fine. You lift the hood, you listen, you find the thing, you fix the thing. He shrugged, a little sheepishly. People aren't like that. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "That might be the most depressing thing anyone's ever told me on a first date." "Yeah, but I kind of love it." The waitress came back with their drinks, and Arya waited until she was gone. And then she leaned forward, elbows on the table, and she said, "Tell me about your son, Tukan." He had not expected that. Most women, when he mentioned Caleb at all, treated the fact of him like a complication to be either accepted or rejected, something to be weighed. Logan had learned to mention Caleb early, within the first 20 minutes, so he could see the flicker. Sometimes there was no flicker. More often there was. He did not judge them for it. A 7-year-old kid was not a small thing to say yes to. But Arya didn't ask whether he had a kid. She asked him about his kid. Different question entirely. "His name's Caleb," Logan said. "He's 7. He paused, searching. "He's the smartest person I know, which is embarrassing to admit because he's 7 and also because I know adults." Arya laughed. "He loves cars, obviously. He comes to the shop every day after school. He has a reading level of a 4th grader, which his teacher keeps telling me is remarkable, but I don't know what to compare it to. He hates tomatoes. He will eat anything with tomato sauce on it. Do not ask me to explain the difference because I have tried for years and I cannot." "He sounds wonderful." "He's my whole life." He said it before he meant to, and it landed between them like a stone. It was the truest thing he had said all week, and he felt embarrassed to have said it so quickly to a stranger. Arya didn't look away. "That's good," she said quietly. "That's how it should be." She didn't ask about Caleb's mother. Logan noticed that. Noticed it and was grateful. Elena had told her, he guessed, and she had decided to wait. To let him bring it up if he wanted to, or to let it stay where it was. Somewhere on the lake, a duck made an angry sound. "So," Arya said, changing the subject with the smoothness of someone who did this for a living. "Give me the tour. Tell me something weird about yourself, something Elena couldn't have told me." "Weird. Weird." Logan thought about it. "I can't whistle." "Everyone can whistle." "I can't. I've tried. My dad spent an entire summer trying to teach me when I was 9. He eventually gave up and said I was going to have a very quiet adulthood." Arya put her hand over her mouth. "Your dad said that to you?" "My dad he was a guy." "That's a loaded sentence." "Yeah." She watched him. He had the sense, suddenly, that she was good at her job. Social worker. Of course she was. She had a way of looking at you like she was listening to what you weren't saying, like she'd figured out the shape of the silence before you'd finished it. "Your turn," he said. "Something weird." Arya thought for a moment, then grinned. "I collect postcards from towns I've never been to." "Explain." "I go to thrift stores, antique shops, estate sales, and I find postcards, old ones, used ones, with messages on the back. And I buy them. I have, I don't know, maybe 400 of them now, from all over. Little towns in Nebraska, Italian coastal villages, places you've never heard of in Kentucky." "Why?" "Because somebody, at some point, stood in that town, bought that postcard, wrote to somebody they loved, and sent it. And the person who got it saved it. And then that person died, or they moved, or they stopped caring, and the postcard ended up in a shoebox in an antique store, and I found it. It's—" She stopped, laughed at herself. "I'm sorry, this is going to sound unhinged." "Keep going." "It's proof that a moment existed. Some Tuesday in 1962, some guy was on vacation in Kentucky, and he thought about his mother, and he bought a postcard, and he stood at a counter and wrote, 'Dear Ma, the weather is fine. Wish you were here,' and he meant it. That happened. It really happened. I like knowing that." Logan was looking at her. "What?" she said. "Nothing." "Don't nothing me, Hayes. That's not weird. That's something else. I don't know what the word for it is. Sentimental. Maybe. You don't strike me as a sentimental guy." "I'm not. But I can recognize it in other people." She held his gaze for a beat too long, and then she looked down at her wine and he looked out at the water, and there was a small, suspended moment where something was happening that neither of them was going to name. Not yet. He had promised Miguel 1 hour. They sat there for 3. The sun went down, the fairy lights came on, the fire pit got lit. People at other tables came and went, and the waitress gave up on them and just started bringing water without being asked. They ordered food and ate it, and Logan could not have told you afterward what he had eaten. She told him about her family. Her mother, Delia, who ran a bed and breakfast in a small town called Pinehurst Ridge, way out in the hill country, a 6-hour drive from where they were sitting. Her father, who had left when Arya was 11, and who had sent a postcard once from somewhere in Arizona, which was maybe where the postcard thing had started. She'd never quite worked it out in therapy. Her younger sister, Nora, 24, who was still at home and had been helping their mom with the bed and breakfast because their mom's back wasn't what it used to be. "So you're the one who left," Logan said. "I'm the one who left. Do you go home much?" "Not as much as I should." "Why not?" She didn't answer right away. She turned her wine glass in a slow circle on the table. "Because when I go home, I feel like I never left," she said. "And I worked hard to leave. I love them, but I'm not the person there that I am here. Does that make sense?" "That makes a lot of sense." "Do you go home?" "My mom's in Florida. We talk on Sundays. My dad's dead." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He wasn't great." "Okay." He liked that she didn't push. He liked that she let the sentence sit where it was. He told her about Claire, eventually. He told her about the pancakes and the kitchen floor and the 3 years and 2 months. He told her how, for the first 6 months, he had kept Claire's toothbrush in the holder next to his because throwing it out had felt like something he couldn't survive. He told her how Caleb had asked for a long time when Mom was coming home from the hospital, and how he had had to explain it and explain it again and explain it again because 4 is too young to understand that someone can just stop existing. Arya listened. She didn't say, "I'm so sorry," the way people said it, the way it came out sounding more like an apology for the awkwardness of the conversation than actual sorrow. She just listened. When he was done, she said, "Thank you for telling me." "Why?" "Because you didn't have to, and because I asked." He looked at her. "You didn't ask." "I did. Not with words, but I did." He thought about that for a long time afterward. When the waitress came with the check, Logan looked at his watch and saw that it was almost 11, and he felt, for the first time in maybe 3 years, a genuine pulse of regret that something was ending. He paid. She tried to split it, and he wouldn't let her, and she accepted with good grace. They walked out to the parking lot together, gravel crunching under their shoes. A cool wind was coming off the pond. The night had gotten colder than either of them had dressed for. Arya wrapped her arms around herself. "So," she said. "So, I don't know how this works. How do people do this now?" "I was about to ask you the same thing. I was hoping, since you were the older one, you'd know." "Hey!" She laughed. "I'm kidding. I'm 29. Don't act like it's a big gap." He pulled out his phone. "Can I have your number?" "You can." He put it in. He texted her its Logan, and her phone buzzed in her pocket. "Got it." "Good." Neither of them moved for a second. "Logan." "Yeah. I had a really good time tonight." "Me too." I had a really, really good time. I'm going to feel stupid about this in the morning. I'm going to replay this conversation in my car tomorrow on the way to work, and I'm going to think, why did I tell him about the postcards? Why did I bring that up? Don't. Don't what? Don't feel stupid about it. She looked up at him. The parking lot was dim, but there was a streetlight overhead, and the light caught in her eyes, and he thought, with the part of his brain that was being honest, "Oh, hell." "Okay," she said. "I won't." He did not kiss her. He wanted to. He almost did. But something in him, the old part, the careful part, the part that had been keeping the lights on for 3 years, held him back. Not out of hesitation exactly, out of something closer to respect. Like he didn't want to cheapen what had happened at that table. So he did not kiss her. He said, "Drive safe." She smiled, small. "You too, Hayes." She got in her car, an old blue Jetta, and she started it, and the engine made a noise he didn't like at all. A rattling in the belt that meant she was going to be calling him in about 3 weeks, whether she knew it or not. He stood there in the parking lot until her taillights disappeared down the road, and then he got in his truck. And he sat for a full minute before he put the key in the ignition. He was 32 years old. His wife had been gone 3 years. He had a 7-year-old boy at home being watched by a woman who would want to go home to her own bed. He had a transmission to finish in the morning and payroll on Friday, and a life, a real life, that had been sitting exactly where he'd left it. And he had just spent 3 hours with a stranger, and he wasn't a stranger anymore. And something in Logan's chest, something he had, without quite realizing it, built a wall around, had just cracked, quietly, like a pane of glass under a thumb. He drove home with the radio off. Mrs. Alvarez was asleep on the couch, and the TV was playing an infomercial for a knife that could cut through a shoe. He thanked her, paid her, walked her to the door. He went to Caleb's room and stood in the doorway and watched his son sleep, curled up around a stuffed dinosaur, mouth slightly open, breathing the way small children breathe, loud, untroubled. He went to the kitchen. He stood at the counter for a long time. He was not thinking about anything in particular. He was letting the evening settle in him the way a stone settles in water, slowly, finding its place. His phone buzzed. Got home. Wanted to tell you so you wouldn't worry. Also, I realized I didn't ask what your son's favorite car is. I feel like that's important information. Logan looked at the message. He read it twice. He read it a third time. He typed, "He'll tell you it's a Mustang, but it's actually a Dodge Charger, and he's lying to himself." He hit send before he could think about it. 3 dots appeared. Then her reply. "Oh no, he's a liar. This changes things." Logan stood there in his kitchen, and for the first time in a long time, he laughed, alone, in the dark, with his son asleep in the next room and a woman he had met 6 hours ago sending him text messages from her car, and he thought, something has started. I don't know what it is, but something has started. He set the phone face down on the counter because he was not ready yet to admit how many times he was going to pick it up again before morning. Outside, a dog barked. A truck rumbled by on the main road. The night settled in around the small apartment above the garage, and Logan Hayes, who had told himself for 3 years that he was not looking, had found something he hadn't known he was looking for. He did not sleep well. He did not sleep badly either. He lay in bed in the dark, hands behind his head, staring up at the water stain on the ceiling he had been meaning to paint over for 8 months, and he thought, what now? And he did not have an answer, but for the first time in a long time, the question didn't feel like a weight. It felt like a door. He woke up at 5:47, 13 minutes before the alarm, which was nothing new. Logan hadn't needed an alarm in years. His body knew the shape of a morning the way it knew the shape of a wrench. He lay there for a minute in the gray of the room, listening to the refrigerator cycle in the kitchen, and he did a thing he had not done in a long time. He reached for his phone before he got out of bed. There was a message from her. Went for a run this morning and thought of 3 things I should have asked you last night. You're welcome to ignore this text entirely. Ah. He read it twice. Then he put the phone face down on the mattress and rolled onto his back and stared at the ceiling and laughed once, quietly, to himself. Then he rolled back over and typed. What 3 things? The reply came a minute later. She was already at work, he figured, or close to it. He imagined her sitting in her car with coffee before the day started. 1. Do you cook? 2. What's the last book you finished? 3. Are you secretly in a band? He sat up. He answered. 1. Yes, but not well. 2. A repair manual for a 2008 Subaru Outback. Not sure that counts. 3. No, but Caleb has a drum kit in his closet that my sister bought him out of spite. Spite is a very specific reason to buy a child a drum kit. My sister is a very specific kind of person. He put the phone down and went to wake Caleb up, and he was smiling, and he did not realize he was smiling until he caught himself in the bathroom mirror, and then he stopped, like he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't. Caleb was a lump under the comforter. Logan sat on the edge of the bed and said, Morning, bud. No. Yes. No. School, Caleb. It's Saturday. It is not Saturday. It's Wednesday. I don't know where you even came up with Saturday. I was trying. I respect the effort. Up. Caleb dragged himself up and sat there, hair sticking up in 4 different directions, eyes swollen with sleep, and looked at his father with an expression of deep and personal betrayal that the day had dared to begin. How was your friend thing last night? He said. Logan paused. He had not expected the question. Caleb was 7. Caleb mostly thought about Caleb, which was how Logan wanted it to be. That was the contract. Logan worried about the world, and Caleb got to worry about Pokemon and his loose tooth. "It was good," Logan said. "Good like good, or good like you're lying?" "Good like good." "Did you bring home leftovers?" "I didn't, Bud. I'm sorry. I forgot." "You forgot." "I know. I've told you one specific thing." Logan laughed. "I owe you a sandwich. I'll make it up to you." Caleb considered this, and then nodded gravely, like they had just negotiated a treaty, and he got out of bed. Miguel showed up in the shop at 9:12, which Logan had been expecting, and which he had spent the 45 minutes before dreading because he knew exactly what Miguel's face was going to do when he walked in. And sure enough, Miguel walked in, and his face did it. A slow grin. The kind of grin that was not a surprise, because it had been planned in advance and rehearsed on the drive over. "Don't," Logan said without turning around. He was under a Civic. "I didn't say anything. You're standing there smiling. You can't even see me." "I can feel it, Miguel. I can feel the smile." Miguel came over and sat down on an upturned bucket near the Civic's front tire. 3 hours. "How do you know?" "Elena's phone went off at 10:57. Aria texted her. Don't wait up. That's a 3-hour text." Logan slid out from under the car. He sat up on the creeper, forearms on his knees, and looked at his friend. "She's nice," he said. "Nice. She's nice, Miguel. You went on a 3-hour first date with a woman, and the word you came up with is nice. I thought you were a smart guy." "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to say, Miguel, you were right. You are a genius. I am lucky to have you in my life." "That's a lot of words." "You have 3 hours to pick the ones you want." Logan almost threw a rag at him. Instead, he stood, wiped his hands, went to the fridge. He took out 2 waters and threw one to Miguel without looking. "I'm not going to overthink it," he said. "Good. I'm going to see her again. Even better. I don't know when. Tonight." "Not tonight." "Why not tonight?" "Because I don't want to look like I don't have anything going on in my life, Miguel. Jesus." "You don't." "I have a son. That's not a social life. That's a responsibility. I don't want to scare her off." "Logan," Miguel leaned forward. "Listen to me. I love you. You are my brother. And I need to tell you, man to man, that if you play this cool, if you do the thing you always do, where you pretend you don't want the thing you want, she is going to think you're not interested, and she is going to move on. I have watched you do this. I watched you do this with the bank teller, and I watched you do this with Elena's cousin, and I am not letting you do this with this one." Logan stared at him. The bank teller had opinions about cryptocurrency. "That is not why you didn't call her back, and you know it." Logan exhaled, long and slow. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Okay," he said. "Okay what?" "Okay, I'll text her." "When?" "Miguel." "When, Logan?" "Today. I'll text her today." "Now." "I'm working." "You're talking to me." "That's not working. Text her." Logan pulled out his phone, mostly to get Miguel to shut up. He looked at the thread, at her last message. Spite is a very specific reason to buy a child a drum kit. And he thought for a second, and then he typed, "Any chance you're free Saturday? Caleb has a soccer game in the morning, and I was going to get him a milkshake after." Not a date exactly, more of a field test. He read it once, and he almost deleted it, and then he hit send before he could. He showed the screen to Miguel. Miguel read it, and his face did something complicated. Pride, mostly, a little bit of surprise. "A field test. I thought it was clever." "It is clever. I didn't know you were clever." "Get out of my shop." I'm going. Miguel stood, clapped him on the shoulder, and walked out. Logan watched him go, and then he stood there for a long moment, looking at his phone, waiting for the 3 dots to appear. They didn't. Not for 20 minutes. He told himself he didn't care, and he went back to the Civic, and he worked on the Civic with a part of his brain he did not trust, because the other part of his brain was in his back pocket with his phone. And every time the phone was not buzzing, the other part of his brain was reading something into that. At 9:51, it buzzed. Saturday works. What time is the field test? And is the field test for me or for Caleb? He grinned, leaning over the engine. Both of you. He's tougher than me.
What's...
Saturday came faster than he was ready for. The soccer game was at a park on the east side of town, one of those municipal fields where the grass was cut too short and the bleachers were metal, and the snack bar sold hot dogs that had been rotating since the Reagan administration. Caleb was on a team called the Rockets, whose jerseys were blue and whose coach, a heavy-set guy named Gus, yelled the word hustle so many times per game it had stopped meaning anything. Logan was standing by the sideline with a thermos of coffee, wearing the same flannel he wore to every game and trying to pretend he was not looking at the parking lot every 30 seconds. Aria showed up at 9:20, 10 minutes before kickoff. She walked up in jeans and an old college sweatshirt, hair in a ponytail, sunglasses pushed up on her head. She was holding a paper cup of coffee of her own, and she looked nervous, which he had not expected and which he found that he liked.
"Hi," she said. "Hi. I brought coffee. I realize now you have coffee. I panicked at the drive-thru."
"I'll take it anyway." She handed him the cup. Their fingers touched briefly, and neither of them said anything about it. "Which one is he?" "Number 7, the short one." "They're all short." "The shortest of the short ones." She found him. Caleb was on the sideline with a ball at his feet, talking intently with a teammate, gesturing at the goal with both hands like he was explaining a physics concept. "He looks serious." "He is serious. He takes this whole thing very seriously. He has a game plan. He draws them on napkins. I'm not allowed to see the napkins." "Why?" "Intelligence leaks." Aria laughed. The real one. The one she'd shown him at the cafe. Logan felt it land somewhere in his ribs. The whistle blew. The kids started running. They ran in a swarm like bees, the ball somewhere in the middle. There was no strategy. There was only the swarm. The parents on the sidelines yelled encouragement that none of the kids could hear. "Is this the whole game?" Aria whispered. "The whole game." "Nobody actually plays a position." "Nobody plays a position." "Then what are the napkins for?" "I didn't say they were good napkins." She laughed again, and she leaned in just slightly, her shoulder bumping his. He did not move. He did not lean into it. He just let it happen, and he felt the warmth of her sweatshirt through his flannel, and he thought, not for the first time that week, this is happening. At one point, Caleb got hold of the ball, and he dribbled it for about 3 seconds with his face set in a look of fierce concentration, and then another kid slide tackled him. Legally or illegally, nobody on the sideline was qualified to say. And Caleb went down and got back up, and he looked over at Logan, and he saw Aria, and he stopped for a full second right there on the field. Logan lifted his hand. Caleb lifted his back. Then Caleb went running after the ball again. "He clocked me," Aria said. "He clocked you. Was that okay?" "That was okay." She glanced at him sideways. "Does he know I'm coming?" "I told him last night. I said, my friend Aria might come to your game. He said, is she the one from dinner? I said, yes. He said, okay. That's all he said. That's all he said. What do you think it means?" "It means he's 7 and he hasn't decided yet." "Fair." The Rockets lost 3-1. The one goal was not scored by Caleb, but was assisted by him if you squinted, which Logan did. Afterward, Caleb came running over with grass stains on both knees and orange slices in one hand. "Did you see the pass?" "I saw the pass." "It was a good pass." "It was a good pass, bud." Caleb turned his eyes on Aria. He squinted up at her with the full merciless attention of a small child deciding whether to trust somebody. "You came to my game," he said. "I came to your game." "Why?" "Because your dad invited me." "Did he make you?" "No, I wanted to come." Caleb considered this. Then he held up the orange slices. "Do you want one?" "I would love one." He handed her one. She took a bite delicately, and Caleb watched her the way a judge watches a witness, and then he nodded, once, satisfied, and ran off to get his water bottle from the bench. Aria turned to Logan. Her eyes were suspiciously shiny. He noticed it and pretended he didn't. "Did I pass?" she said. "You passed the first round." "There are rounds. There are many rounds." "Logan?" "Yeah." "You are raising a very good kid." He had to look away for a second. He pretended to be watching something on the field. "Thanks," he said, quiet. The milkshake place was a diner on Route 9 that had been there since the 60s. with vinyl booths patched in 3 places and a chrome counter and a waitress named Doreen who had been there, by all accounts, since the diner opened. Logan and Caleb ate there every Saturday after every game. It was a ritual. Doreen did not need to ask Caleb what he wanted. Vanilla shake, extra cherry, no whip. Yes, ma'am. And the boy? The usual. Grilled cheese, fries, chocolate shake. Whip only on the shake, not the fries. She looked at Arya over her glasses. You knew. I'm Arya. I can see that. You knew. I'm new. Doreen studied her for a beat longer than was polite and then said, Strawberry? Strawberry is perfect. Doreen walked off. Caleb was climbing onto the booth seat next to Logan. Arya was across from them, watching the whole thing with the amused look of a person who had just been appraised like livestock. She's judgmental, Caleb said, matter-of-factly, sliding a napkin dispenser to himself. I felt that. She doesn't like most people. Did she like me? I don't know yet. I'll tell you. Thanks, Caleb. Caleb took out a little notebook from his pocket, flipped it open, and started drawing something. Logan looked at Arya and shrugged, a small apology for the strangeness of his son, although he did not actually feel apologetic about it. What's the notebook? Arya asked. Caleb didn't look up. It's where I write down things. What kind of things? Just things. He was not being rude. He was being 7. Arya seemed to understand this because she just nodded, and she didn't push, and she turned her attention to the menu, even though she had already ordered, because she could feel that Caleb needed her to not be looking at him for a second. Logan saw her do it. He saw her recalibrate. He felt something loosen in his chest. The food came. Caleb ate like a wolf, the way 7-year-olds do after an hour of soccer, his face entirely occupied by grilled cheese and shake. Logan and Arya talked quietly about small things. Her week at work. A case she couldn't tell him about, but mentioned in the vaguest possible terms to say that she'd had a rough Thursday. A customer at the garage who had tried to convince Logan that he could pay in cryptocurrency. Again with the cryptocurrency, Arya said, grinning. It's everywhere, Logan said. At some point, Caleb looked up from his food and squinted at Arya. What's your job? I'm a social worker. What's that? I work with kids who don't have parents who can take care of them right now. Where do those kids live? Sometimes they live with other families, temporarily. Sometimes with relatives. It depends. Caleb chewed slowly. Do their moms die? Logan went still. He started to say something, but Arya, without looking at him, put her hand flat on the table between them, palm down, in a small, private gesture that meant, it's okay. Sometimes, she said to Caleb, not usually. Usually it's complicated, but sometimes, yes. My mom died. I know, your dad told me. When I was 4. I know. I don't remember a lot. That's okay. That happens when we're very little. Caleb looked down at his shake. He stirred it with the straw, slowly, making a vortex. I remember her laughing, he said. That's mostly what I remember. That's a good thing to remember? Yeah. He went back to eating. He did not say anything else about it, but when Arya reached across the table to take a fry off his plate, Caleb did not swat her hand away, which Logan had seen him do to Miguel, to Aunt Rebecca, to the mailman once. He let her have the fry. Logan was looking at his milkshake. He was looking at it like it was the most interesting thing in the diner, because if he looked up at Arya right then, he was not sure what his face was going to do. They walked out together after. The parking lot was sunny, and the air smelled like asphalt and French fries. Caleb was running ahead, kicking a pebble. Arya slowed her pace to match Logan's. She kept her voice low. I wasn't sure whether to answer that the way I did. You answered it right. I didn't want to lie to him. You didn't. Thank you. Logan? Yeah. He's not a test for me. I want you to know that. Logan slowed. He stopped walking. Caleb was 20 feet ahead, crouching to examine something on the ground. A bug, probably. He had time. I know, Logan said, but he's a test for me. Do you understand what I mean? She did. He could see her understand it. Yeah, she said. I understand. It's not about whether he likes you, it's about whether I can... He paused, looked for the word. Whether I can imagine him liking you. Imagine the shape of it. I have to be able to picture it before I let it happen. I'm sorry, I know that's... Don't apologize. I work with parents all day. You're not even in the top 5 most careful. He laughed, surprising himself. He's already asked me 3 questions, she said. That is not a kid who hasn't made up his mind. No? No. Caleb stood up from the pavement, holding something small between 2 fingers. Dad. What, bud? I found a really cool rock. Let me see. Caleb ran back, held it out. It was an ordinary piece of gravel. Logan made a thoughtful sound. Solid find. It has lines. It does have lines. Caleb handed it to Arya, not to Logan. He did it casually, like it meant nothing. It did not mean nothing. You can have it, he said. Arya took the rock. Thank you, she said very seriously. I'll take good care of it. Caleb shrugged, running off again. Arya closed her hand around the pebble. She did not look at Logan. She looked at the sky for a second, blinking, and she said without turning, Okay. That was okay. Yeah. I have to go home before I embarrass myself. Okay. Logan? Yeah. Thank you for this. Thank you. She drove away. Logan stood in the parking lot with Caleb, and they watched her blue Jetta pull out, and as it turned onto the road, Logan heard the belt again, that small, rattling squeal, and he thought, okay, 3 weeks, maybe less. Well, it turned out to be 8 days. 8 days of texting. 8 days of her sending him photographs from her life. Not posed ones, just pictures of things. A weird cloud she saw out her office window. A cat she passed on the sidewalk. A cup of coffee a coworker had drawn a face on with a Sharpie. 8 days of him sending her pictures back, mostly of the shop. Caleb doing homework on the hood of a car. The sunrise over the service bay. A misprinted invoice that had somehow charged a customer $8,900 for an oil change, which they had both agreed was probably fair, given inflation. On the 9th morning, her Jetta pulled into his lot. He heard her coming before he saw her. The belt. He was under a Camaro, and he slid out, and there she was, getting out of her car with a coffee in each hand, squinting against the sun. My car is making a noise. I know. How do you know? I heard it in the parking lot 10 days ago. You've got a belt slipping, probably the serpentine. Should I have gotten it checked 10 days ago? Probably. Am I about to be lectured by a mechanic? You are about to be lectured by a mechanic. She handed him a coffee. Bribery. Persuasion. Same thing when you're doing it. She laughed, and he took her keys, and he brought the Jetta into the bay. Caleb was at school. It was quiet. The radio was on low, some old Creedence song. Arya sat on the bench along the wall with her coffee and watched him work. She was good at watching him work. She didn't talk. She didn't fidget. She didn't pick up her phone. She just sat there, legs crossed, coffee in both hands, and watched him. And every once in a while she'd ask him a question. What does that part do? Why is that a problem? And he'd answer, and she'd nod, and she'd go back to watching. At some point, he wiped his hands on the rag and looked over and said, You're going to make me self-conscious. What? Staring. I'm not staring. You're staring. I'm observing. What's the difference? Professional distance. He shook his head, smiling, and went back under the car. She said from the bench, My mom called last night. Yeah? She's okay, but her back is worse. She fell last week and didn't tell me. He came out from under the car. Arya? She didn't want me to worry. That's her whole thing. She doesn't want me to worry. So she waits until after. It drives me insane. Is she all right now? She's all right now. Nora was home. Nora took her to the doctor, but Arya looked down at her coffee. I'm thinking I should go up this weekend. See her. She's been on her feet too much. Of course you should go. I feel like I shouldn't have to say it like I'm asking permission. I just mean, I had plans with you and Caleb. Arya, go see your mom. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. He came over to the bench and sat down next to her. Not close, but close enough. He smelled like grease and coffee. She did not seem to mind. How long of a drive? 6 hours, more in traffic. That's a haul. I've done it a lot. He watched her. Do you like going home? She took a long breath. Let it out.
I love my mom, she said. I love my sister. I love the bed and breakfast. I love the way the pines smell in the morning up there. I love it. And also going home makes me feel like a kid again, in a way I have worked very hard to unlearn. And 2 days in, I'm 12 years old, and my mom is asking why I don't wear more color, and my sister is asking why I haven't found a nice boy, and I want to burn the whole house down. She laughed at herself, a little sourly. So the answer is complicated. Yeah. You said your sister's younger. 24, 4 years younger. She's the one who stayed. She's always been the one who stayed. And I know that sounds like I'm saying I'm the one who matters, but I don't mean that. I mean, I got out, and she didn't. And I don't know if she didn't because she couldn't or because she didn't want to, and I've never asked her, because I'm a coward. You're not a coward. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know you well enough. She looked at him. A beat. Logan? Yeah. I'm going to be gone 3 days. Okay? I just wanted you to know. Okay. I'll call. Okay. She reached over and put her hand flat on his forearm, just for a second, and then she took it back. He did not move. He did not breathe, really. He watched her hand go back to her coffee cup, and he thought, with a small, dull sense of alarm, I am in trouble here. She left on a Friday morning. She texted him when she got on the road. She texted him at the halfway point. She texted him when she pulled into her mother's driveway, a picture this time of a big white farmhouse with a long porch and 2 rocking chairs and a chalkboard sign out front that said Pinehurst Ridge Inn in faded cursive with a little painted pine tree at the corner. Made it. Mom is small. I forgot how small. He looked at the picture for a long time. Then he wrote back, give her a hug for me. From the guy she hasn't met. She would adore you. It would be annoying. That night, Caleb asked at dinner where Arya was. She went to see her mom. Her mom is alive. Yeah, her mom is alive. Her mom has a bed and breakfast, bud, up in the hills. What's a bed and breakfast? It's like a hotel, kind of. But small. People stay there and they get breakfast. That's a weird hotel. It's a cozy hotel. Caleb considered this. He was eating spaghetti, badly, with most of it on his chin. Is she coming back? Yeah, bud, she's coming back Sunday. Okay? He went back to his spaghetti. Logan watched him for a minute, and then he looked at his own plate, and he wasn't hungry. He had not been hungry since she'd left that morning, which was a thing that used to happen to him in high school, and which had then stopped happening, and which was now apparently happening again. He was 32 years old. He had a garage to run. He had bills. He had, in the drawer of his nightstand, a small photograph of Claire he had not been able to throw out or put away. And he had a son with spaghetti on his face. And he was sitting at his kitchen table missing a woman who had been gone for 11 hours. Get it together, Hayes, he told himself. He did not get it together. On Saturday, she called at noon. He was at the shop, alone. Caleb was with Miguel and Elena for a few hours. Hey yourself. How's your mom? She's okay. She's stubborn. She's being stubborn about the walker the doctor told her to use. She says it makes her look old. She's how old? 67. Arya. I know. Tell her a good-looking mechanic says to use the walker. She laughed. I will. She'll want pictures. Don't encourage that. A pause. Logan. Yeah. I don't want to be weird. Be weird. I miss you. I missed you this morning. I woke up and I wanted to text you, and then I felt like it was too much because it's been, 3 weeks? Is that even? 3 weeks? And I thought, am I one of those, Arya? What? I miss you too. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. They both went quiet for a second. He could hear a bird on her end. A door closing. Tell me about your day, she said. He told her about his day. He told her he had changed the oil on a minivan and replaced a radiator and yelled at a guy for parking in his lot without coming inside. He told her Caleb had lost another tooth and been too proud to cry, but had cried anyway. She told him about her morning, breakfast on the porch with her mother, her sister Nora making a big production of the eggs, guests at the inn, who were honeymooners and very irritating and kept asking for more jam. They talked for an hour. He did not work the whole hour.
He sat on the bench in the bay with the phone to his ear, and he listened to her, and the sun moved across the floor of the garage. And he knew, with a certainty that should have frightened him, that something had just settled in him that would not unsettle easily. When they hung up, he sat there for a long time with the phone in his hand. He was looking at a spot on the concrete where, 2 weeks before, Caleb had dropped a box of screws, and Logan had never quite gotten all of them back. There was still one near the wall, small and dull silver, winking at him. He thought about the shape of his life. He thought about the wall he had been building for 3 years and 2 months, brick by brick. He thought about how carefully he had done it, how patient he had been, how he had told himself that he was not building a wall exactly. He was building a shelter, a place for his son, a place for his work, a good place, a quiet place. And he thought about how in 3 weeks, a woman he had not even wanted to meet had walked into the shelter politely and had started rearranging the furniture. He set the phone down. He picked up a wrench. He went back to work. Opam. Sunday, she was supposed to be back by dinner. By 7, he had not heard from her. By 8, he had texted her. You on the road? Just checking. And there had been no answer. By 9, he had told himself to stop checking. By 9:15, he had checked again. At 9:48, his phone rang. Caleb was in bed. Logan was on the couch, the TV playing something he wasn't watching, a basketball game he didn't care about. He snatched up the phone. Arya? Hey, hi, I'm sorry. Her voice was wrong. He heard it before he understood it. What happened? He said. Are you okay? I'm okay. I'm still at my mom's. I didn't leave. Okay. There's some stuff came up. I'm going to stay a few more days. I should have called sooner. I was trying to sort some things out before I didn't want to call and not have information. He sat up on the couch. What kind of stuff? A long silence. It's the inn, she said. It's worse than Mom told me. It's a lot worse. She's behind. She's way behind. The bank has been... She got a letter. She's had the letter for a month. She didn't tell me. A letter? They're going to take it, Logan. They're going to take the inn. He closed his eyes. Arya, I found it this afternoon. It was in her desk. Nora didn't know either. My mom has been carrying this by herself for a month because she didn't want to bother us. She didn't know what else to do. She thought if she just kept smiling, she could get through it. Her voice broke on smiling. He heard it break. I'm going to stay a few days. I have to. I have to figure out what... I have to look at the numbers. I have to talk to the bank. I have to... Of course you do, Arya. Of course. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't call earlier. I was at the bank, and then I was on the phone with their accountant, and then my mom had a whole breakdown in the kitchen, and Nora was... Arya, stop. Breathe, she breathed. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be sorry. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. Okay. I don't know, Logan. I might have to be here for a while. Okay. Okay? Okay? That's what you have to do. Stay as long as you need to stay. You're not upset. What would I be upset about? I don't know. This is not what this was supposed to be. Arya, listen to me. This is what life looks like. This isn't a complication. This is your life. Go be with your mom. Go figure it out. She was quiet. He heard her breathing on the other end of the line, uneven, trying to steady. Okay, she said. Okay. I'll call tomorrow. Call whenever you can. Okay? Arya. Yeah. I'm here. You're not alone in this. Okay? Tell me what you need. I don't know what I need. That's okay too. She laughed, a wet, broken sound. You're too nice. I'm really not. You are, Logan. You're nicer than I know how to handle right now. They hung up. He sat on the couch for a long time with the phone in his hand, and the basketball game played on, and he did not watch it. He watched the phone. He watched the black rectangle of it, and he thought about a white farmhouse 6 hours away, and a woman he barely knew standing in a kitchen with her mother, trying to hold something together that was too heavy to hold. He got up. He walked to Caleb's room. His son was asleep, one arm thrown over his head, breathing that deep, complicated breath that kids breathed. Logan stood in the doorway for a long minute, Then he went back to the kitchen and he put a hand flat on the counter and he felt his own weight go through his arm into the wood. He was not a man given to big feelings, or anyway, that was what he told himself. That was the story he had been using for 3 years. Big feelings were a thing for other people. He was the guy who fixed things. But something was happening to him, something he had not given himself permission for, and he was not going to be able to fix it from here. He stood in the kitchen for a long time. He did not turn on the light. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside, and somewhere deep inside him, a decision started forming. It was not a loud decision. It was not a cinematic one. It was small and quiet, and it was the kind of decision a man made standing at his kitchen counter in the dark, with his son asleep in the next room and a woman crying 6 hours away. He didn't know it yet, but it was already there. The decision did not announce itself. It sat in him, the way a stone sat at the bottom of a river, and the water kept moving over it, and the stone did not move. He went to work on Monday. He opened the shop at 7, made coffee, looked at the schedule, a brake job, 2 oil changes, a diagnostic, and he did all of it with the stone in him. And he did not tell anyone it was there. Caleb had noticed something. Kids always noticed. Dad? Yeah, bud. You're doing the thing. What thing? The thing where you're here but you're not here. They were eating breakfast. Logan was making eggs. He had the spatula in his hand and he had been standing at the stove for probably 10 seconds longer than he needed to, the eggs starting to turn rubber around the edges. Sorry. Is it about Arya? He turned off the burner. He turned around. Caleb was at the table, cereal bowl half empty, looking at him with that flat, assessing look that Claire used to do too, and that Logan sometimes had to brace himself against because it still, 3 years later, knocked something loose in him. Why do you ask that? Because she's not back yet, and you said she was going to be back. I know I did, bud. Something came up at her mom's. Her mom needs her for a little longer. Oh. Is that okay? I mean, yeah, it's okay. I was just wondering. Logan turned back to the eggs. He slid them onto 2 plates, badly. He sat down. Caleb was poking at his cereal with the spoon, chin in his hand. Dad? Yeah. Is she coming back? Logan paused, fork halfway up. Yeah, he said. She's coming back. You don't sound sure. I'm sure. He wasn't sure. He was performing sure, the way parents perform a lot of things for small children, and he was not proud of it, but he was not going to stop doing it either. Not yet. Caleb accepted this. He went back to his cereal. After a minute, without looking up, he said, If she needs help, you should help her. Logan put his fork down. What do you mean? I mean if her mom is sick or whatever. You should help her. I'm 6 hours away, bud. I can't really... You have a truck. Logan looked at him. That's true. I'm just saying. Caleb? What? You're 7. I know how old I am, Dad. He had to laugh. He couldn't help it. He laughed and he reached over and ruffled Caleb's hair, and Caleb ducked and scowled and wiped his head like the ruffle had offended him, which was the relationship they had, and which Logan did not take for granted. He watched his son eat cereal, and he thought about the word truck. He thought about it all day. Basiquement. She called that night, late, after Caleb was in bed. She sounded tired in a way that didn't come from a single day. The kind of tired that came from a week of pretending you were fine and then finally admitting you weren't. Hey. Hey, how was your day? Long. How's the inn? A pause. He could hear wind on her end, the sound of a porch swing creaking. She was outside. I met with the banker today. And his name is Ray. Ray Ledbetter. He's 50, maybe. He grew up 3 roads over from this place. He's known my mother since they were in high school. Okay. He looked at me like I was a 7-year-old, Logan. He sat there across his desk in his tie, and he said, Well, honey, your mama's in a tight spot. And I sat there, 31 years old, with a master's degree, and I let him call me honey because the numbers were so bad I could not afford to correct him. What are the numbers? She told him. They were not numbers Logan had expected. He was used to the arithmetic of a small business. He'd run a shop on the edge of other people's budgets for 10 years. He understood what a mortgage looked like, what a bad quarter looked like, What it looked like to have a month where the lights almost went out. This was not a month. This was a collapse, slow and patient, built over maybe 2 years, hidden by a woman who had decided to carry it alone because that was what she'd been taught to do. She hasn't paid the mortgage in 6 months, Arya said. She used the guest deposits to pay for the new roof last fall. The accountant quit because she couldn't pay him, and the new one is Logan. The new one is the banker's nephew. The banker's nephew. I don't know how this works where you're from, but it does not inspire confidence where I am. Arya. I'm sorry. I'm in a bad mood. You're allowed. She exhaled. What are the options? He said. 3. 1. She sells. Ray has a buyer lined up. Of course he does. A developer out of the city wants the land. He'd tear the house down. My grandfather built that porch with his own hands. He was a carpenter. The hand railings on the stairs, my mother knows which boards have her father's thumbprint on them. 2. She refinances, but for that she needs income to prove, and the income is not there to prove. 3. She finds a cosigner. A cosigner, a family member with assets, which besides me, she does not have. My sister has no credit. My father hasn't been reachable since 2014. And you, and me. Would you do it? I have to. There's no other option I can live with. If I cosign, I am on the hook. If she defaults again, it's my name, my credit, my everything. Okay? I can't do that from 6 hours away, Logan. I have to be here. I have to be inside it. I have to look at the books every month. I have to meet with Ray. I have to make sure my mother is not using the deposits to fix things she shouldn't be fixing. I have to... Yeah. I'm going to have to stay. The word stay hung in the air. Not come back, not figure it out. Stay. For how long? He said. I don't know. Arya, I don't know. Months at least. Maybe a year. Maybe longer. I'd have to leave my job. I've already talked to my director. She was kind about it, but there's no job to come back to if I'm gone more than 90 days. They have kids who need them. They can't wait. Right. She was quiet for a long time. He heard the porch swing. He heard a screen door open and close somewhere on her end, and a murmur that was probably her sister saying something from inside. Logan. Yeah. I don't know what this means. Arya. I don't know what this means for us. For you and me and Caleb. I don't know how to ask someone to wait. I've never asked anyone to wait. And I've also never been someone who... She stopped. He heard her try again. I've never been someone who wanted to be waited for. Nobody's asking anybody to wait. You're not asking, no. Logan, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you. But I also, I can't tell you I'll be back by Christmas. I can't tell you I'll be back by summer. I can't tell you what my life is going to look like in 3 months. And that's not fair to you. It's not fair to Caleb. Don't tell me what's not fair to Caleb. He said it more sharply than he'd meant to. He heard it come out and winced. I didn't mean it like, I know, I'm sorry. I just, don't decide for him. Don't decide for us. Okay. She was crying, he realized, quietly. The kind of crying a person did when they were trying not to be heard because they had stepped out onto a porch to make a phone call and their mother was in the kitchen. I'm tired, she said. I know. I'm so tired, Logan. I know. Tell me something good. He cast around in his head. It was almost midnight. He was standing at his kitchen counter again, which he had been doing a lot lately. In the dark. Which he had also been doing a lot lately. Caleb told me today that I have a truck. What? He was giving me life advice. He wanted me to know that if I needed to drive somewhere, I had the means to do so. He said it like it was new information. She laughed. It came out wet. He's a menace. He really is. I miss him. Arya. I do. I miss him. I've known him for 3 weeks and I miss him. I don't know what is wrong with me. Nothing. Something is wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with you. She was quiet. Logan? Yeah. I should go. Okay. I'll call tomorrow. Okay. She didn't finish the sentence. She hung up. He stood in the kitchen with the phone in his hand. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed. He put the phone down on the counter, and he stood there for a long time, and he did not move. The next 2 weeks were a slow-motion fracture. At first, she called every night. Then she called every other night. Then she called when she could, which was less often, because the days at the inn were long and the nights were longer. She was learning a business she had never wanted to run. She was sitting across from her mother at a kitchen table doing math she had never expected to do. She was fielding calls from her sister Nora, who was supportive in theory and resentful in practice, because Nora had been there the whole time and nobody had asked for her opinion until the house was already on fire. Logan learned a lot about Arya's family in fragments. Delia, her mother, was not small in the sense of weak. She was small in the sense of a woman who had been carrying something for too long and who had started, slowly, to bend. She made breakfast for the guests every morning at 7. She did not stop doing it even when Arya told her to stop. "What else am I supposed to do, sit in the parlor?" she said. Nora was 24 and angry in a way that came and went like weather. She'd gone to a community college for 2 years and quit, and she'd been working at a diner in the next town over, and she'd been coming home on her days off to help their mother, and nobody had thanked her for it, which was partly her mother's fault and partly Arya's, and Arya knew it. "She won't look at me half the time," Arya said on the phone one night. "She thinks I swooped in like the hero, the big sister, the one with the fancy job, and I don't even know how to tell her. I don't want to be the hero. I want to be the one who gets to leave again. Tell her that. I can't." "Why not?" "Because then I'd have to admit I'm not the hero." And she'd be right. Logan was on the couch, the TV off, Caleb asleep down the hall. It was a Wednesday. It had been 11 days since she'd left. "Arya." "Yeah." "You can be there and still want to leave. Those can both be true." "I don't know if they can." "They can. Don't be wise at me right now. I'm too tired for wisdom." "Sorry." "I miss your kitchen." "What?" "Your kitchen, the yellow wall, the thing, the whatever it is, the dish towel with the chicken on it. I miss your kitchen. I've been in that kitchen twice and I miss it." "I miss you in it." A silence, then quietly, "Don't say things like that, please. I can't hold that right now. Does that make sense?" "Yeah. I'm sorry." "It's okay. I have to go." "Okay." She hung up. He sat there with his phone in his hand. He sat there with the kind of stillness a man gets when something he has been trying not to name has just been named for him by someone else, and then quickly taken back. "I can't hold that right now." He understood it. He did. He understood all of it. He understood that she was drowning. He understood that when a person is drowning, they cannot also be a romantic partner in any meaningful sense. He understood that his feelings were not the center of this. And he also understood, with a clarity that arrived in him like a cold draft, that they were losing each other. Not because they wanted to, because the shape of the thing, the distance, the pressure, the exhaustion, the slow, crushing weight of a life that was not hers that was now hers, was bigger than whatever small, new, brave thing they had started. And he could feel it. He could hear it in her voice every time she called. She was pulling further away from him, not because she didn't want him, but because she did not have the bandwidth to want anything. He set the phone face down on the couch. He put his face in his hands. He stayed like that for a long time. Miguel came by the shop on a Thursday. He had stopped asking at that point. He would just show up with coffee, sit on the bucket, and wait to see if Logan wanted to talk. Sometimes he did. Sometimes he didn't. Today, Logan did. "She's not coming back." Miguel looked up. He set the coffee down on the workbench. "What?" "She's not coming back, Miguel. Not in the way we thought. Her mom's losing the house. She's got a cosign. She's got to be up there. She quit her job." "Jesus." "Yeah." "Logan." "What?" Miguel was quiet for a second. He looked at the floor, then back up. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." Logan looked at him. "I'm sorry," Miguel said. "I don't mean to push, but I've known you a long time. You don't get like this. You got like this. I watched you get like this, and now you're telling me she's not coming back, and you're sitting in this garage telling me you don't know what you're going to do, and I know you well enough to know that you know what you're going to do." "Miguel,
Just say it. I can't just say it. Yes, you can.
Logan put the wrench down. He sat on the upturned crate across from Miguel. The shop was empty. The bay doors were half down. It was getting toward evening. The light was long and coming in at an angle and catching on the dust, the way it had on the first Tuesday 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks? And how had it only been 3 weeks? I'm thinking about going up there, Logan said. Okay. Not for a visit, not just... I know what you mean. I'm thinking about going up there with Caleb. I'm thinking about putting a closed sign on the shop for a week, maybe 2. I'm thinking about driving the 6 hours and knocking on her mother's door. I'm thinking about... Okay. I don't know if that's crazy. It's a little crazy. I know. It's the good kind of crazy. How do I know that, Miguel? How do I know it's the good kind? Because you're scared. Logan looked at him.
You wouldn't be scared if it was the bad kind. You'd just do it. The bad kind is easy. It's the good kind that makes you want to throw up.
Logan laughed, one dry laugh. That's a hell of a philosophy.
I've had it a long time.
They sat there for a minute. Caleb, Logan said. That's the part I can't... She's a 7-year-old. I mean, he's 7. I can't put him in a truck for 6 hours without knowing what we're driving into. He's 7, not 6 months old. Talk to him. I can't ask him to... Talk to him, Logan. Stop deciding for him. He's a person. He's a small person, but he's a person. Logan looked out the bay door. The sky was turning orange. A breeze moved a piece of paper across the lot. She asked me not to wait for her, he said. Not in those words, but she asked. No, she didn't. She said she couldn't hold it right now. That's not asking you not to wait. That's asking you to meet her halfway. That's a very different thing, Logan, and if you don't hear the difference, it's because you don't want to. Logan was quiet. You're doing the thing again, Miguel said. What thing? The thing where you make the pain smaller by making the decision smaller. She didn't ask you to wait forever, and she didn't ask you to show up. She asked you for space. Space is a real thing. Space is not the same as go away. You know this, man. You know this. I know. So what are you going to do? Logan stood. He picked up the wrench. He set it back down. He picked it up again and set it down again, and he stood there in the middle of his shop, and he looked at Miguel, and he said quietly, I'm going to talk to Caleb. Okay? Don't look at me like that. I haven't decided anything yet. I'm not looking at you like anything. You're smug. I'm not smug. You're smug, Miguel. Okay. I'm a little smug. Let me have it. Chomped. He did not talk to Caleb that night. He told himself he was going to, and then he got home, and Caleb was deep into a show about sharks. And Logan thought, let him finish the show. Then dinner, and then homework, and then a bath, and then Caleb wanted a story, and then the lights were off. And Logan was standing in the doorway of his son's room, and he had not said anything. He went to the kitchen, he sat at the table, he looked at his phone. He did not call her. She had not called him either. Not that night. It had been 2 days. He went to bed. He woke up at 3:14 in the morning, which was unusual for him, and he lay in the dark and looked at the ceiling, and he could hear his own pulse in his ears, the kind of heartbeat you become aware of only when it is keeping you from sleep. He lay there for a long time. He thought about Claire. He had not let himself do this in a long time. He had boxed her up, carefully, early on, so he could keep functioning. She lived in a few specific places. In the photograph in his nightstand drawer, in Caleb's eyes when Caleb was concentrating, in the song that used to come on the radio in the kitchen on weekend mornings, and that Logan had, for a long time, skipped past whenever he heard the first notes. She did not live in his chest, much, or his head. He had not let her. But she was there, at 3:14 in the morning, and he let her be there, just for a minute. What do I do? He thought at her. Claire, tell me what I do. He did not expect an answer. He was not the kind of man who believed in answers in the dark. But what he felt, lying there, was something like Claire's voice in his head saying, You stubborn, beautiful idiot, what are you waiting for? He was not sure if it was her voice or his own. He was not sure it mattered. He got up. He walked, in his socks, down the hall. He stood in Caleb's doorway. Caleb was asleep on his side, one arm under the pillow, the stuffed dinosaur on the floor where he'd dropped it. Logan stood there a long time. Then he went back to bed, and he slept until the alarm. He talked to Caleb the next morning, at breakfast. He poured the cereal and he sat down and he said, without warning himself, "Bud, I want to talk to you about something." Caleb looked up, spoon halfway to his mouth. "Is it bad?" "No, it's not bad. It's not bad. I want to ask your opinion on something." "Okay." "It's about Arya." "Okay." Logan took a breath. Her mom is in some trouble. Money trouble. The kind where Arya has to stay up there and help her. She might have to stay a long time. Like how long? I don't know. Maybe a really long time, maybe until... I don't know, Caleb. It could be a while. Oh. Yeah. Is she sad? She's pretty sad, bud. Caleb chewed his cereal. He was looking at the table, not at Logan, which was his thinking position, the same position he got into when he was trying to draw something complicated. Are you sad? A little, yeah. Because you like her? Yeah, because I like her. Do I like her? Logan almost laughed. I think you do. I think I do too. Okay. So what are we doing about it? Logan put his spoon down. That's what I wanted to ask you about. Caleb waited. I've been thinking, Logan said slowly, about driving up there, to where she is. Me and you. I was thinking maybe we close the shop for a few days. I get somebody to watch the place. We drive up. I don't know, bud. I don't know exactly what we do when we get there, but I wanted to be there. Not to rescue her. I don't think that's the right word, just to be there. To say we're here. To help if we can help. To not let her do this without... He stopped. He did not know how to finish the sentence. Caleb was watching him now. How far is it? 6 hours in the truck. That's a long time. It is. Would we stay at her mom's house? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know yet. We'd figure it out. Does she know we're coming? Logan paused. No, he said. Why not? Because I haven't asked her yet. I wanted to ask you first. Caleb nodded seriously. He was quiet for a long moment. Dad? Yeah. Is this the kind of thing where I say no and we don't do it? Yeah, that's the kind of thing this is. Then I'm going to say yes. Caleb, I'm saying yes. I want to go. Are you sure? I want you to actually think about it. It's a lot of driving. We'd be gone from home for... I'm sure, Dad. Bud. Dad, I'm sure. She's sad. We should go. That's what you would tell me to do if it was one of my friends. Logan could not speak for a second. Yeah, he managed. I guess I would. So what are you doing still sitting there, mate? Logan laughed. It came out strange and unsteady. He got up and he crossed the kitchen and he hugged his son from behind, and Caleb, who generally did not tolerate extended hugging, did not squirm. Okay, Logan said. Okay. I'll figure it out today. We'll go this weekend. This weekend. This weekend. Dad? Yeah. I'm gonna need snacks for the truck. A lot of snacks. I'll get snacks. Like a lot. I promise, bud. Caleb nodded, satisfied. He went back to his cereal. Logan stood behind him with his hands on the back of the chair, and his chest was doing something he had not asked it to do, and he did not try to stop it. He did not tell her he was coming. He thought about it, a lot, over the next 2 days. He drafted the text 3 times. I'm going to drive up Saturday. Delete. I've been thinking about coming up there. Delete. I want to see you. Delete. He understood, finally, that if he asked her, "Can I come?" she would say no. She would say it out of love and out of exhaustion and out of the kind of stubbornness she had inherited from her mother. She would say no because she could not ask someone to show up for her and also hold together whatever she had left. She would say, "Don't come. It's too much. I don't want you to see me like this." And he would understand, and he would not come. And so he did not ask. He asked Miguel to watch the shop for 4 days. Miguel said yes. He asked Mrs. Alvarez if she could take Caleb to school the last half day on Friday. She said yes. He packed a duffel bag Friday night, one for him, one for Caleb. He put the duffel bags by the door. He packed a cooler. He put water bottles in it, Gatorade. The snacks Caleb had demanded. An absurd number of snacks, because he did not want to mess this up. At 10 p.m. Friday, Arya called. He let the phone ring twice before he answered. He did not want her to hear anything in his voice. Hey. Hey. How are you? I'm okay. Okay. Ray called me sweetheart today. I considered homicide. Don't go to jail, Arya. I've decided against it. Good. A pause. Logan. Yeah. I'm sorry I haven't called. You don't have to be sorry. I do. I've been avoiding you. Arya, I have. I've been avoiding you because every time I hear your voice, I want to come home, and I can't come home. And it's easier to not hear your voice than to hear it and want to come home and not be able to. Arya, I know, I'm sorry. That's a terrible thing to say. I'm going to go to sleep now. I'm sorry. Arya, hey, it's okay. It's not okay. It's okay. She was crying again, very quietly. He could tell. He could always tell now. Tell me what you did today, she said. He paused. He thought about it. He looked at the duffel bags by the door. He thought for 1 second, tell her. He did not tell her. I did oil changes, he said. I changed a tire. I ate a terrible sandwich. Terrible sandwich? From a gas station. It had pickles. I hadn't ordered pickles. The pickles were a surprise. Were the pickles good? The pickles were fine. The concept of the pickles was upsetting. She laughed. It was a thin laugh, a tired one, but it was a laugh. I love you, she said. And then there was a small, mortified silence, because she had not meant to say it. He knew she hadn't. He heard it in the sharp intake of breath right after, but she had said it, and it sat there in the phone line between them like a lit match. Oh, she said. Oh, no. Arya. I wasn't going to say that yet. I'm exhausted. I don't know what I'm doing. Please forget I said that. I'm going to hang up now. Arya, don't. I'm going to hang up now, Logan. I'm sorry. Please don't make me say it again when I'm less tired. Good night. She hung up. He stood in his kitchen and he looked at the phone, and he had not said it back. He had not said it back because he was not fast enough, because she had said it and then run. And he had been sitting on the word for weeks, maybe, without having known he was sitting on it. And by the time he had gathered himself to say me too, she was gone. He put the phone down. He walked to the door. He looked at the duffel bags. He looked at the cooler. He looked at the keys to the truck on the little hook by the door. He went to Caleb's room. His son was asleep. Logan sat on the edge of the bed. He put a hand on his son's back and felt the rise and fall of Caleb's breathing. And he thought, okay. He went to his own bed. He lay down with all his clothes on. He stared at the ceiling. He did not sleep, really. He drifted. At 4:45, he got up. He made coffee. He filled a thermos. He woke Caleb gently, and Caleb sat up with his hair standing straight up, and he blinked, and he said, "Today's the day. Today's the day. Snacks? Snacks are in the truck. All of them? All of them. Let's go." It was still dark when they pulled out of the parking lot at 5:15. The sky was just beginning to turn, a faint gray line along the east. Logan drove with one hand on the wheel and one hand on his coffee, and his son buckled in beside him, feet swinging above the floor, and the road was empty, and the headlights cut a white channel through the dark, and neither of them said much for the first hour. The truck hummed. The radio was low. Somewhere, 6 hours north, a white farmhouse sat on a hill, and a woman was asleep in a bedroom that used to be hers, and she did not know that her life was already rearranging itself again, for the second time in a month, without her permission. And Logan drove. The miles rolled, the sky lightened, the road climbed out of the flat country and into the hills, and the hills put on their fall colors slowly, reluctantly, as if they had been waiting to be asked. Caleb fell asleep against the window around mile 100. Logan reached over, without looking, and adjusted the hoodie he had stuffed between his son's cheek and the glass. He did not know what he was going to say when he got there. He had not figured that out. He had the 6 hours to figure it out, and he was not sure it would be enough, but he was going.
And somewhere in the quiet of the cab, with the radio low and his son breathing soft against the seat beside him, Logan Hayes, who had built a wall for 3 years and 2 months, brick by patient brick, understood that the wall was already behind him, on some road he had already driven past in the dark, and that whatever was waiting for him at the top of the hill, he was going to meet it on his feet. The sun came up. He kept driving.
They stopped once, at a gas station outside a town called Harperville, for the bathroom and more coffee and a package of mini donuts that Caleb held onto like it was currency. Logan filled the tank and watched his son stand on a concrete bumper, balancing, arms out like he was on a tightrope. The wind up in this part of the state was different, cleaner, colder, carrying the smell of pine and wood smoke from somewhere. Logan paid inside, bought a stick of beef jerky he did not want, and stood for a second at the counter looking at a rack of postcards. There were postcards. Of course there were. He looked at them for a long time. He almost picked one up. He didn't. He did not want to give her a postcard. He wanted to show up. Back in the truck, Caleb had opened the donuts and was eating them methodically, one at a time, powdered sugar all over his shirt. Dad? Yeah. What happens if she's mad? Logan glanced at him. He'd been waiting for the question. He'd been a little surprised it hadn't come in the first hour. I don't know, bud.
You don't know? I don't know. I think she might be mad at first. I think she might not know what to do with us. I want you to be ready for that. Okay? Not mad at you. Mad at me, maybe, because I didn't tell her. Why didn't you tell her? Because if I told her, she'd tell me not to come. Caleb considered this. That's sneaky. It is sneaky. Is it okay to be sneaky? Not usually. When is it okay? Logan thought about it. He pulled back onto the highway. The dotted line ran under the truck. When somebody you love is trying to pretend they don't need help. Caleb chewed a donut. He nodded slowly, like he was filing this away for future use. Logan did not miss the word love hanging in the air between them, unremarked. Caleb had not remarked on it. Neither did he. The hills got taller. Around mile 300, the road went up into real country. Switchbacks, stone walls, pull-offs with wooden signs warning about deer. The trees changed. Logan had not been this far north in years. Claire had once driven this same road with him before Caleb was born, and he remembered a motel they had stayed at in a town he could not now name, and her laughing about the wallpaper, which had been roosters. Thinking about it did not hurt exactly. It sat in him like weather. Caleb fell asleep again around hour 4. Logan drove with the radio low, and he used the silence to practice, in his head, what he was going to say when she opened the door. He did not come up with anything. Every version he tried sounded wrong. Every version sounded like a speech. He had never been good at speeches. He gave up trying. The GPS said 43 minutes to Pinehurst Ridge when the road began to narrow. 2 lanes became 1.5. Mailboxes tipped at odd angles out of the ditches. They passed a lumberyard, a feed store, a white church with a hand-lettered sign that said firewood, $4 per bundle. Don't knock, leave money in can. Caleb woke up. Are we there? Almost. How almost? 40 minutes. I have to pee. You peed an hour ago. That was an hour ago. Logan pulled over at a turnoff that had a picnic table and no bathroom. Caleb did his business behind a tree while Logan leaned against the truck and looked out over a valley of pine and maple going gold. And for the first time since leaving the house, he understood, in his body, that he was not turning back. He had known it before. Now he felt it. There was no drive home that would be shorter than the drive forward. Whatever he was doing it. Caleb came back buckling his jeans, looking pleased with himself. Let's go, Dad. Let's go, bud. They drove the last stretch with the window cracked. The air smelled like cold water and pine sap. Pinehurst Ridge, when they finally crossed into it, was not so much a town as an idea of one. A main street 3 blocks long, a post office, a hardware store with a bench out front, and an old man on the bench, a library that had once been a bank. Logan drove through slowly. People in trucks going the other way lifted a hand off the wheel in greeting. He lifted his back. Everyone waves, Caleb observed. That's what they do in small towns, bud. Even at strangers. Especially at strangers, it's a signal. A signal for what?
I'm not going to kill you. Caleb thought this was the funniest thing he had heard all day. He laughed for almost a minute, which did something small and good in Logan's chest. The inn was a mile past the town. The GPS took them up a rise and onto a gravel road that ran between two pastures, and then the trees closed in, and then there it was, exactly as in the picture Arya had sent him. The big white farmhouse, 2 stories, a porch that ran the length of the front, and the chalkboard sign at the end of the driveway. Pinehurst Ridge Inn. The painted pine tree. The faded cursive. Logan pulled the truck up slowly and stopped at the top of the drive, not in the parking area. He put it in park. The engine ticked. Dad? Hang on, bud. Just give me a second. He sat there. His hands were on the wheel. His mouth was dry. He had driven 6 hours, and he now had approximately 50 yards left to walk, and he had lost all of his courage in the gravel driveway of a woman's mother. Dad. Yeah. You said we weren't turning around. I know. You told me in the parking lot, you said. I know, bud. Caleb unbuckled his own seatbelt. He opened his own door. He got out. He stood on the gravel with his hand on the door handle, and he looked back at his father. Come on, he said. Logan stared at his son. He laughed, once, shakily. He unbuckled. He got out. He walked around the truck, and he took Caleb's hand, and Caleb led him, which was not nothing, and together they walked up the gravel drive toward the porch. Halfway there, the screen door of the farmhouse opened. It was not Arya. A woman who could only be Delia came out onto the porch, drying her hands on a towel. She was small, just the way Arya had said, with gray hair pinned back and a cardigan over a blue dress, and she stopped when she saw them. She squinted. She took a step forward to the railing. She was, Logan realized, sizing them up. A strange man and a small boy walking up the driveway of her inn. He lifted his free hand, small wave. Ma'am, he called, and he was aware, even as he said it, that he had not said ma'am to anyone in probably a decade, and that it had jumped out of his mouth because he had grown up in a house where you said ma'am to women who had a certain look, and Delia had that look. I'm sorry to show up without calling. Delia did not answer right away. She came down the 2 porch steps. She walked toward them without hurry. She had a limp he had not been able to see from the porch, a small favoring of her right hip. She stopped about 6 feet away. You're Logan, she said. He blinked. Yes, ma'am. She's described you. Oh, not much, just enough. She looked at Caleb. Caleb was pressed a little against Logan's leg, but not hiding, watching her back. And you? Caleb said. Caleb. Delia's mouth went up a little at the corners. I have heard about you too. She told me you gave her a rock. Caleb looked up at Logan. Logan raised his eyebrows at his son like, see? I did, Caleb said. She has it on the dresser in her room. Caleb grinned. He could not help it. Logan felt the grin through the shoulder pressed against his leg. Delia turned her eyes back to Logan. They were not unkind. They were not kind either. They were the eyes of a woman who had been carrying something heavy and who was reserving her energy. She doesn't know you're here, she said. It was not a question. No, ma'am. She considered him for a long moment. Logan felt absurdly that he was being interviewed for a job that had not been posted and that the interviewer was going to ask him a question he could not prepare for, and that if he answered wrong, he would have driven 6 hours for nothing. Why'd you come? She said. Logan opened his mouth. He closed it again. He had 6 hours of rehearsal behind him and nothing prepared, and all he could think to say was the truest thing he had. Because she's carrying too much, he said, and she's not going to ask for help. Delia looked at him. It was a long look. It was the kind of look a mother gives a man when she is deciding whether to let him pass the front step. Logan kept his feet still and his hand on Caleb's shoulder, and he held her eye. After a beat, Delia said, She's out back. Ma'am? The barn. Past the garden. There's a barn we use for storage. She's been in it all morning trying to sort through 30 years of my nonsense. She's in a foul mood. I recommend going around. Logan could not speak for a second. Thank you, he said. I haven't done anything yet. Go on. He nodded. He started to move, then stopped. Ma'am, Mrs. Blake, I should have called. I'm aware I didn't call. I'm sorry. Delia studied him. Then, for the first time, she smiled. A small, tired smile. The kind of smile a woman gives when she has just decided something about a man and has not yet told him what it is. Logan, she said, if you'd called, she'd have told you not to come. Don't apologize for outsmarting my daughter. It takes work. He almost laughed. Go, she said. He went. The barn was past this vegetable garden, which had mostly gone to seed, pumpkins huge and orange on their vines, a few sunflowers still standing but leaning bad, tired of September. The barn was the old kind, weathered wood gone the color of pewter, a door that slid on a rail, the rail partially broken, so the door sat cocked. The door was open about 3 feet. The sound of moving boxes came from inside and a voice cursing quietly. Logan slowed. He let go of Caleb's hand. Bud. Yeah. Can you hang back for a second? Just for a minute. Let me say hi first. Then I'll come get you, okay? Caleb considered this. Okay, he said. I'll look at the chickens. There were no chickens visible. There was a chicken coop, though, off to the side. Caleb wandered toward it, hands in his pockets, small and purposeful, and Logan watched him go for a second, and then he turned and walked to the barn. He put his hand on the cocked door. He took a breath. He stepped inside. It took his eyes a second to adjust. The barn was full of that gold, mote-heavy light that came through the gaps in old wood. There were boxes, so many boxes, piled in stacks, some open, some closed, some collapsing. There was a cedar chest with the lid up. There was a bicycle hanging from a hook that was probably from 1970. And in the middle of it, on her knees on an old horse blanket, going through a cardboard box of what looked like photographs, was Arya. She had on a gray t-shirt with a stain on it. Her hair was in a braid, badly, the end of it coming apart. She had not put on mascara in several days. She looked 10 years younger and 10 years older at once, which was something grief did to a face. She did not hear him. He stood there for a long second, looking at her. Arya. She went very still. She did not look up. She knew his voice. He watched her understand the impossibility of it, and then not be able to explain it away because he had said her name twice now. He had said, she looked up. Her face did not know, for a second, what to do. It moved through several things in sequence. Confusion, alarm, a flicker of something that was almost joy before she caught it and put it away, and then, last, a kind of tired, stunned flatness. What are you doing here? Her voice was very quiet. I drove up. Logan? I know. Logan, what are you... I drove up, Arya. You drove 6 hours. I drove 6 hours. She sat back on her heels. She put a hand up to her face, not to hide it, just to hold it, like she had to physically keep it from falling apart. You can't do that. I know. You can't just show up. I know. I told you I didn't. I know what you told me. Her eyes were full, suddenly. She blinked hard. She was not going to let the tears go. He could see her deciding it. She was angry. He had expected the anger. He sat down slowly on an overturned crate about 6 feet from her. He let her have space. He did not crowd her. Where's Caleb? She said. Outside, looking for chickens. There are no chickens. The coop is empty. He'll figure it out. She laughed in spite of herself, one sharp sound, and then she put her hand back over her face. Logan, she said through her hand, this is not... You don't understand. I'm in the middle of... I haven't slept. I'm sorting through 30 years of my mother's... I know. Why did you come? Because you said you loved me and then hung up. She went still again. A long silence. The barn creaked. Somewhere outside, Caleb's voice was calling to chickens that were not there. I didn't mean to say that, she said. I know. I was tired. I know. It wasn't fair. It wasn't... I can't be the person you need me to be right now. I told you that. I told you. And you came anyway. I came anyway. Why? Because I didn't say it back. She looked at him then. Really looked. Her braid was falling apart entirely on one side. There was a cobweb in her hair. She had a smudge of dust across one cheekbone. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, and he did not know how to tell her that without sounding like a bad movie, so he did not try. Arya, don't. I love you too. Don't, Logan. Please don't say it here. Not in a barn. Not when I look like this. Not when I'm going to keep saying it. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it now because I did not say it when you gave me the chance. And I have been sitting with that for a week, and I'm not going to sit with it anymore. I love you. I don't have a plan. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what my shop looks like in 6 months, or what your mother's inn looks like in 6 months. I have no idea. I am not a man who is good at not having a plan. I came up here without a plan, and my son is outside looking for chickens that do not exist, and I'm telling you I love you in a barn, and I am aware of all of it, and I do not care. She put both hands over her face. Her shoulders were shaking. He stayed on the crate. He did not come closer. He let her cry. He had been a father long enough to know when not to move. After a minute, she lowered her hands. Her eyes were wet. Her mouth was doing something unsteady. You brought your son, she said. I brought my son. You drove your 7-year-old 6 hours across the state. Yes. Without telling me. Yes. Because you thought I'd say no. I know you would have said no. She laughed, and it came out broken. I would have said no. I know. Logan, I'm still in it. I'm still here. I still have to stay. You showing up doesn't change the inn. It doesn't change the mortgage. It doesn't change I know. Then why? Because you don't have to do it alone, that's all. I came to tell you that. You don't have to do it alone. You don't get to decide that on your own anymore because I'm not letting you. She was crying again. He stood up, finally, slowly, and he crossed the barn, and he crouched in front of her on the horse blanket. He did not touch her yet. He put a hand out, palm up, on his own knee, and he left it there, and she took it. Her hand was cold. Her fingers closed around his. I'm tired, she said. I know. I'm so tired, Logan. I know. My mother has been hiding things from me for a year. The accountant is a crook. The nephew is a crook. The banker called me honey. My sister hates me. The inn has a boiler that is 92 years old and might actually kill someone this winter. I don't know how to fix any of this. I don't know how to... Hey. What? Hey, look at me. She looked at him. One thing at a time, he said. We do one thing at a time. You don't have to solve all of it today, okay? We. Logan. We. Arya. Say we. Just try it out. She looked at him. Her eyes, up close, were not the eyes of the woman at the cafe. They were the eyes of a woman who had been running a crisis by herself for 2 weeks with insufficient sleep and no one to put her head on. They were the eyes of someone who had been bracing for impact. We, she said quietly. There. I don't know how to let people help me. I don't know how to let people help me either. Maybe we're both going to be bad at this. She almost smiled. Behind them, a small voice said, There's not any chickens. They both turned. Caleb was standing in the open door of the barn with his hands on his hips, looking personally disappointed in the world. His hair was sticking up. His jeans had dirt on them from the coop. I checked 3 times, he said. There's not any chickens. Your mom lied to me. I'm sorry, bud, Arya said. Her voice cracked in the middle. Caleb came in. He walked right up to her, matter of fact, and he crouched down the way she was crouched, and he looked at her very closely. Are you crying? He said. A little. Why? Because your dad is a big pain in the neck. Yeah, Caleb said, nodding seriously. He is. Arya laughed through her tears. She laughed, and she could not stop laughing. And then she put her arm around Caleb, just tentatively, just testing. And Caleb, who did not like hugs, who did not usually tolerate them, who scowled at his grandmother's kisses and dodged Miguel's rough attempts at affection, leaned into her. He leaned in, and he put his head on her shoulder, the way a child does, without thinking, and he said into her shirt, We came to get you. I see that. Dad said you were sad. I was sad. Are you less sad now? She looked up over Caleb's head at Logan, who was still crouched on the horse blanket, watching. Her eyes were wet, her mouth was open, her hair was terrible.
Her cheek was dusty. "Yeah, Caleb," she said. "I'm less sad now." They sat there, the three of them, on the barn floor for a long time. Logan did not remember later exactly what they said. It was not important what they said. What was important was that they stayed there. The sun moved across the barn in patient bars. Caleb eventually got up and started investigating things. An old cowboy hat, a rusted bucket, a tackle box full of fishing lures that Logan made him leave alone because of the hooks. Arya and Logan stayed on the blanket. She leaned against his shoulder at some point, and he let her, and they did not talk for a while. "My mother's going to think we're up to something." "Your mother already let me pass the front door. She's fine." "What did she say to you?" "She said you're stubborn." "She did not." "She did. She said you outsmart people." Arya laughed. "She's one to talk." "I think I like her." "Everyone likes her. That's part of the problem. She has spent 40 years giving pieces of this inn away to anyone who smiled at her. That's how we got here." "Yeah." "Logan." "Yeah. You're going to have to go home." "I know." "You can't. This is not a thing you can just solve by driving up." "I know." "This is going to be months, maybe longer." "I know." She lifted her head to look at him. "Then what is this?" He thought about it for a second. He did not want to rush the answer. "This is me telling you," he said, "that from here on in, you are not doing it by yourself. I don't know yet what that looks like. I don't know if I come up weekends. I don't know if you come down when you can. I don't know if at some point we sit down and figure out something bigger. I just know I'm not going back to my shop in my apartment and pretending you're not here. That's the deal." She was quiet. "The deal. The deal. And if I say no? Do you want to say no?" She did not answer right away. She rested her forehead against his shoulder again. He could feel her breathing. "No," she said, into his shirt. "I don't want to say no." "Okay. Okay." Caleb was across the barn holding the cowboy hat against his head, where it was about 5 sizes too big and had fallen almost to his nose. He looked up. "Dad, can I keep this?" "No, bud." "Why not?" "Because it's not ours." "You can have it," Arya called. "If your dad says it's okay." "Dad?" Logan looked at his son. He looked at Arya. He looked at the barn full of 30 years of someone's life, and the broken door rail, and the cobwebs in the corners, and the sunlight cutting through the gaps in the wood. He thought about the drive up, and the drive back he was going to have to make, and all the drives after that. He thought about the weight of the whole thing, and how heavy it already was, and how much heavier it was going to get before it got lighter. He thought, "Okay, okay. Keep the hat, bud," he said. Caleb whooped. He jammed the hat down over his head, and he charged out of the barn, and they could hear his footsteps on the dirt outside, and his voice calling triumphantly to the chickens that were still not there. Arya laughed. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing the dust more. She looked up at Logan. "He's going to lose that hat before we get to the house." "Probably." "Logan." "Yeah." "Thank you for coming." "Yeah. I was going to be okay. You know, if you hadn't come, I was going to figure it out." "I know. But I'm glad you came." He did not say anything back. He did not need to. He reached over and pulled a cobweb out of her hair, carefully, the way you handle something fragile. And she closed her eyes just for a second, and she leaned her face into his hand, and there was no speech and no music and no great cinematic swell. There was just a barn and a woman and a man, and outside a small boy wearing a hat too big for him, calling to invisible chickens. Somewhere in the house, Delia was probably making tea. She was probably getting ready for the conversation she was going to have with all of them, about the inn and the bank and what could be done. It was going to be a long conversation. It was going to take more than one afternoon. It was going to take probably every afternoon for a long time. But not yet. Not right this minute. Right this minute, Logan Hayes was sitting on a horse blanket in a barn 6 hours from home, with his hand against the cheek of a woman he had known for 4 weeks, and he was not afraid of anything. He had been afraid for 3 years. He knew the shape of afraid. This was not afraid. This was something else. They went up to the house after a while, the 3 of them, walking slow. Caleb had in fact lost the cowboy hat twice before they reached the porch, and Logan had retrieved it twice, and by the third time he just carried it himself. Delia was at the screen door when they came up, wiping her hands on a dish towel, and she looked at Arya's face, dust-streaked, swollen, unmistakable, and she did not ask any questions. She opened the door and said, "I put the kettle on. Come in, all of you. Caleb, honey, there are cookies on the counter, and my oldest has informed me that 7-year-old boys are allowed 3 of them." "4," Arya said from behind her. "3," Delia said firmly. Caleb went through the door like a shot. The kitchen was warm in a way that kitchens were in houses where people had been cooking for 40 years. Logan sat at a round oak table with Delia across from him, and Arya excused herself to go upstairs and wash her face, and for about 10 minutes it was just Logan and Delia and a 7-year-old boy eating a third cookie. Delia asked him about his shop. She asked him, not in the way strangers asked, but in the way a woman asks when she's trying to figure out the kind of man her daughter has brought into the house. She asked about Caleb's school. She asked where his mother was. When he told her, she nodded once and did not say she was sorry, which he appreciated because he had heard "I'm sorry" enough times to know when it was a reflex and when it was real. "How long can you stay?" she said. 2 more days. I have to get back by Tuesday. Miguel's watching the shop, but I can't ask him for more than that." 2 days is something. "Yeah." She studied him. She took a sip of tea, then she set the cup down and she leaned forward and she said very plainly, "Logan, can I ask you something straight?" "Yes, ma'am." "Are you going to disappear on her?" He did not look away. "No, ma'am." "Think about it before you answer." I thought about it the whole drive up. 6 hours is not a lot of thinking for a decision that size. It was enough. She held his eye a long second. Then she nodded, once, and she picked up her tea again, and she said as if to herself, "Well, all right then." Arya came back down. Her hair was wet at the temples. She'd splashed her face. She'd put on a different shirt. She stood in the doorway of the kitchen and looked at the scene. Her mother, this man, this boy with cookie crumbs down his front, and something in her face unlocked that Logan had not known was locked. They sat at the table, the 4 of them, and they did not talk about the bank. Not that first afternoon. They talked about other things. Delia told Caleb a story about Arya at 7, which Arya objected to loudly and unsuccessfully. Caleb laughed with his mouth open. Arya looked at Logan across the table and mouthed, "I hate this." Logan raised his cup of tea at her. That night, after Caleb was asleep in the guest room upstairs with the oversized cowboy hat on the pillow next to him, Logan and Arya and Delia sat at the kitchen table with the lights on low, and they opened the ledger. It was, as advertised, bad. Logan did not pretend to understand everything. He understood some of it. He understood the logic of a small business, and he understood that a woman who had been giving free nights to the mayor and discounted weeks to cousins for 2 decades had left a hole that was going to take more than 1 season to fill. He sat next to Arya with a yellow pad, and Arya did the numbers, and Delia sat across with her hands folded, and Logan did the one thing he was good at, which was ask questions from outside. Why this line item? Why does it double in September? Why does the nephew get paid more than the handyman? Why, Delia? Because he's my nephew. He's a crook, Mama. He's not a crook. He's just young. Mama, listen to yourself. They argued gently. They argued in the way of people who loved each other very much and who were tired. Logan did not take sides. He listened. And when they got to the real number, the one at the bottom, the gap between what the inn brought in and what it owed, Logan looked at it, and he let out a low breath, and he said, Okay. Let's not solve it tonight. Let's sleep on it. Delia went to bed. Arya and Logan stayed at the table with 2 cups of cold tea. I can't ask you to put money in this, she said. I didn't offer. I know you didn't. I'm telling you in advance. Okay? Logan. Arya. I don't have money to put in this. I don't. I run a garage. I have savings, but they're not this kind of money. So you don't have to worry about offering, and I don't have to worry about offering, and we can just sit with what it is. She looked at him. Then what can we do? Well, I've been thinking. She waited. There's a couple things, he said. Nothing magic. You tell me if I'm wrong. 1, the nephew goes today, tonight, if you can do it. Your mother's been paying him $2,000 a month to do the books of a business that's losing money.
That stops. She'll fight me. She won't fight you when I go home on Tuesday and she has to look at the books with only you. She'll fight me because I'm a stranger. She won't fight you. Okay? 2. That barn. You've got 30 years of stuff in there. Some of it is junk. Some of it is not junk. I saw a cedar chest in there that somebody would pay real money for. I saw a bicycle from the 70s that's worth more than a car. You've got a whole estate sale sitting in there that nobody's opened. You want a plan for this month? You clear that barn out and you sell what's sellable. It's not enough to fix it. It's enough to buy time. Time is what you don't have right now. You need to show the bank movement. You show Ray Ledbetter movement. He'll give you 3 more months. I don't know him, and I know that. She was quiet. 3. The boiler. Logan, the boiler is the kind of thing I can help with. I'm a mechanic. I can't fix a boiler that's 92 years old, and I wouldn't try, but I've got a friend in Springfield who does commercial HVAC, and he owes me a favor from 2019, and I'll call him Monday morning and see if he'll come up and look at it at cost. Not for free. Nobody's doing anything for free. At cost. That saves you probably $6,000, maybe more. She was looking at him now in a way she had not looked at him before, like she was seeing him for the first time in a certain kind of light. Logan, I'm not done. Okay, 4. And this is the one I want you to think about, so don't answer tonight. You've been running this by yourself for 2 weeks because your mother wouldn't let you tell your sister the full picture. That ends. Nora works every weekend at a diner in the next town over. You know what she's learning at that diner? Service, books, schedules, payroll. She has been picking up an entire MBA for $6 an hour and nobody has noticed. You bring her in, not as the little sister who runs errands, and you give her a title and you give her a cut, and she stops hating you inside of 6 months. And she runs this place better than your mother's been running it because she's been paying attention her whole life and nobody asked her until now. Arya stared at him. How did you? I listened, Arya. You told me. I don't know if I did. You did. Told me all of it in pieces. I just listened. It's the one thing I know how to do. I listen to what's wrong and I try to find the thing that's actually broken. And sometimes the thing that's actually broken is not the thing everybody's pointing at. She put her face in her hands. Are you crying again? He said softly. No. You are. A little. Come here. She got up and she came around the table and she sat down on his lap, which was the first time she had done that, and she put her arms around his neck and she cried into his shoulder, and he held her, and he did not say anything for a long time because there was nothing to say. I can't believe you drove up here, she said, muffled. I can't either. I'm sorry I told you not to. You didn't tell me not to. You just didn't ask me to. Those are different. She laughed wet into his neck. Logan. Yeah. Are we going to be okay? He thought about it. He thought about the drive back. He thought about the months, the weekends, the 6-hour road he was going to drive a lot, the phone calls, the compromises, the fact that there was a shop to keep open and a child to raise and a woman to love and a mother-in-law who would, God help him, become part of his life now. He thought about all the things that could still go wrong. I think so, he said. I think we're going to have to work pretty hard. But yeah, I think so. Pretty hard. Yeah. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I know. She laughed again. She lifted her head. Her face was a mess. Her eyes were red and her nose was running a little, and she had a small line on her cheek from where she had been sleeping on a blanket in a barn 3 hours earlier. She was, once again, the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, and this time he said it out loud, and it sounded exactly as stupid as he had been afraid it would, and she laughed and kissed him anyway. It was the first time they had kissed. He had been waiting 4 weeks for it. It was worth it. He stayed 3 days, not 2. He called Miguel on Sunday and said, I need another day, and Miguel said, I know. I figured, go. On Monday, the HVAC friend in Springfield picked up on the first ring and said he'd come up that Thursday, at cost, because Logan had done him a solid in 2019. On Monday afternoon, Arya drove to her sister's apartment in the next town and she sat down with Nora on a second-hand couch. And she said, I need you. I should have said it weeks ago. I need you, Nora cried. Then Nora yelled at her for 10 minutes. Then Nora agreed. On Monday evening, Delia fired the nephew over the phone. Logan was in the kitchen when she did it. She cried after. Logan handed her a dish towel without saying anything, and she blew her nose in it, and she laughed, and she said, I've needed to do that for a year. On Tuesday morning, before dawn, Logan and Caleb got back in the truck. Arya stood on the porch in a coat she had thrown on over her pajamas. The sky was the same color it had been in Logan's parking lot 4 days earlier when they'd pulled out. Delia was at the window with a mug of coffee, not hiding that she was watching. Caleb climbed into the passenger seat holding the cowboy hat, which he had refused to leave and which he did not put on because he knew it would slide off in the truck. 2 weeks, Arya said. You'll come back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Maybe I can come down once a month. Once a month. And we'll figure out the rest. We'll figure it out as we go. Yeah, Logan. Yeah. I'm sorry it's going to be hard. Don't be sorry. Easy wasn't working for me anyway. She laughed. She kissed him on the porch. She kissed Caleb on the top of the head, and Caleb let her, and he said, Come see my soccer game when you come down. I will. Okay. Logan put the truck in gear. Caleb waved out the window until they were around the bend. Then he settled back and he looked at his father and he said, We did it. We did, bud. That was a good trip. It was a good trip. I want pancakes. We'll get pancakes. Bet. The months after were not clean and they were not easy, and anyone who has done what they were trying to do knows that. Some weekends Logan made the drive. Some weekends Arya drove down with Nora's kid in the back seat because Nora was, by then, running the front desk on weekends and needed help with the baby. The boiler got replaced, barely, and the barn got emptied, slowly. A picker out of Cincinnati bought the bicycle for more than it had any right to cost. Ray Ledbetter kept calling Arya sweetheart for another 2 months, and then, after a long meeting in which Arya walked him through a revenue projection she had built herself with a spreadsheet and a lot of anger, he called her Ms. Blake. And he kept calling her that from then on. The inn did not turn around overnight. It took 14 months. But it turned. Arya moved back in the spring of the following year. Not all the way back, not yet, because she was still splitting her time with Pinehurst Ridge. She took a job in her old field, part-time. She kept a room at her mother's inn, which she used on the weekend she went up. She kept a drawer of clothes at Logan's apartment, and then at some point it was not a drawer but a closet. And then at some point it was not an apartment but a house, a small one, that they bought together on the far side of town with a yard big enough for a dog, which Caleb named Wrench, for reasons that were obvious to everyone. Delia came to visit at Christmas. She stood in Logan's shop on a cold Tuesday afternoon, and she looked at the bell over the door that still did not work. And she said, Logan, sweetheart, fix the bell. And Logan, without turning around from the truck he was under, said, It's on the list. Here's what Logan thought about later. He thought about how the whole thing had almost not happened, how close he had come to saying no to Miguel, how close he had come to turning around in the gravel driveway of the inn, how close he had come 3 years in to deciding that his wall was good enough, and that his son was enough, and that he did not need anything else, and that it would be better, safer, not to try. It would have been safer. It would also have been smaller. And that was the thing he could not have told himself at 32. And the thing he understood at 33, and the thing he would spend a long time trying to put into words for Caleb as Caleb got older, that the life you protect and the life you build are not the same life. You can guard what you have so carefully that it shrinks in your hands. You can mistake stillness for safety. You can tell yourself you are being a good father by not taking risks. And you can miss, in that story, the fact that your son is watching you and that what he is learning from you is not how to be safe. What he is learning from you is whether a man gets in the truck or not. Logan got in the truck. He did not get it perfectly right. He never did. He was short-tempered sometimes. He worked too much. He and Arya fought about money, and they fought about her mother. And they fought once, badly, about whether Caleb should start calling her something other than Arya, and they did not resolve that one for almost a year. There were nights she slept on the couch. There were mornings he went to work without saying goodbye. They were two tired people trying to build something with the hours they had after the rest of the day had already taken most of them. But they built it. And on a Saturday afternoon, about 2 years after the day he had met her at the Lakeside Cafe, Logan was standing in the open bay of his shop in the same flannel he always wore, wiping his hands on a rag, and Arya was sitting on the bench along the wall with Caleb beside her. Caleb, who was 9 now, almost 10, all elbows and knees. And they were arguing about whether a 1970 Dodge Charger was better than a 2005 Mustang, and Caleb was losing.
And he was losing on purpose because he liked her better when she won. The radio was on low. The sun was coming sideways through the doors. The bell above the door, which Logan had in fact finally fixed, made a small, clean sound as a customer walked in.
Logan looked at the two of them on the bench. He looked at the dog, Wrench, asleep on the concrete. He looked at his hands, which were the same hands that had, at 29, held his wife's face for the last time on a kitchen floor, and which were also, now, the hands of a man who was about to turn 34, and who had, against every expectation he had ever had of himself, gotten a second life. He understood standing there that nothing was guaranteed. Arya could still leave, the shop could still close. Any of them could get sick, any of them could die. He had learned that lesson the hard way, and he was never going to unlearn it. But he had also learned finally a second lesson, which was that the fear of losing a thing was not a reason not to have the thing. That was the oldest trick grief ever played on a person, and he had fallen for it for 3 years, and he was not going to fall for it anymore. He wiped his hands. He walked over to the bench. He kissed Arya on the top of the head, and she looked up and smiled, and Caleb made a disgusted noise, and the customer at the counter said, "Is anybody going to help me or what?" And Logan said, "Yes, ma'am, coming." And he went to help her. Outside, the afternoon kept going. The sun kept moving across the lot. The bell rang again, clean and new, when the customer left. And inside the shop, a man who had almost not shown up to a blind date was doing the most ordinary thing in the world, which was showing up one more time to the life he had been brave enough to build. That was the whole story. That was all of it.